So growing up, me and my mom didn't have the best relationship, which is the reason why we aren't close. My mom was a single parent. She had me at 14. I have never met my dad before, and whenever I tried to talk about him, she'd get really upset and tell me that he didn't want me and that I will never meet him, so stop asking. She'd tell me that I was a mistake and that I shouldn't exist. I was at one point where I thought if my own parents didn't want me, no one would. She refused to ever give me hugs and kisses. She never showed me that she loved me. And I went through my whole life thinking that she hated me, and I didn't understand why. And it's sad because I can't even remember a time where she told me that she loved me. I felt like times she couldn't even look at me, and I questioned my whole life. What's wrong with me? Until I found out the craziest news, and it was that she birthed a child of her, and she couldn't truly bear loving me. But I will always love you.
I was ringing up a dad and son, and the first thing I noticed about them is they were both wearing t-shirts with fish on them, so I knew they were probably used to catching shit, and I was definitely not about to let them catch an attitude. So the dad stopped me as I was ringing things up, and he said, whoa, 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 that's supposed to be on sale. And I was like, oh, okay, just let me rescan it. And so I rescanned it, and the price was just like my weight. It just wasn't getting any lower. So I looked at him and I was like, this price is stagnant. And he was like, okay, we'll get someone else over here. So my coworker came over and she scanned the item and manually entered the item number, and the price just wasn't moving. And then the dad decided to elbow the son and go, haha, how many women does it take to scan an item? And then he elbowed him again and decided to repeat the joke. And I was just sitting there like, dang, you about to bruise his ribs. So then the dad took us to where he saw the sale sign, and lo and behold, there was a sale sign, but it was for a completely different product. So I looked at him and I said, see, this sign is actually for a different product, as you can see printed on here. And then I elbowed my coworker and said, haha, how many men does it take to read a sign?
Storytime, my parents found out that I was dating a white boy. So a little background information. My parents are super strict, especially my dad. And on top of that, my dad thought that races should not mix. One of his sayings was, you don't see a blue jay fucking a pigeon. AKA, white people and black people should not be together. Sounds fucking stupid. Yeah, I know. Anyways, like I was saying, it was my freshman year of high school and I had been dating this boy for 2 months. And of course he was white. And we had to keep it super low key because if any of my friends found out about it, they would have fucking told my dad. Now when I look back at it, those weren't good friends at all. Anyways, every Friday my boyfriend and I would go to the movies. And we would go to this theater that was 45 minutes away because nobody that I knew would be there. The only person that knew that I was dating a white boy was my sister. Well, the one day after the movies, I couldn't get a ride home, so I had to get a ride home with him and his family. And as soon as I pulled up, my parents were waiting outside, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my parents found out that I was dating a white boy. So like I said, my sister couldn't come pick me up, so I had to get a ride with him and his family. And what do you know, as soon as we pull up to my fucking house, my dad is standing on the porch waiting for me. So I told his parents to drive around the block one more time while I called my sister and told her to distract my dad. So as we're driving up to my house again, I see that my dad isn't on the porch. So I run into the house before he could see me getting out of a white boy's car. So a few months go by and we're still dating, very low key. And the one night at 3 in the morning, I get woken up by my sister. And she says, you better delete any pictures that you have of you and you know who off your phone. And you better come up with the story right now. Because one of your friends took pictures of you walking with him in the hallways and kissing him behind the stairwell at school. So after I deleted everything off my phone, a few seconds later, my dad came into my room screaming his head off. He was so mad. I ended up getting my ass beat, and I also got grounded from my phone for 4 months. But after that, my mom ended up leaving my dad, and then him and I got back together.
We decide to go no contact with my mother-in-law for the rest of my pregnancy. Until she decides to apologize for what she's done, we don't want to speak to her. A few weeks before my due date, my mother-in-law reaches out to my husband and says he misses her and my daughter. So he asks if we can go have dinner to try to mend the relationship. I said okay, but I didn't feel comfortable bringing my daughter, so I left her to my sister. At dinner, my husband asked his mom if she's ready to apologize. She said she's ready, but as soon as she gets the paternity test result, because my husband cannot be the father, and the fact that we have 2 girls is ridiculous. I proceed to grab my things because I'm not listening to this, when she grabs me and slaps me as hard as she can across the face. She calls me an effing whore and says I need to own up to my problems. I push her away, trying to get to the door as fast as possible when she throws a snow globe at my head. I fall to the ground, and that's when she starts kicking me. In my belly. My husband pushes her off of me and she breaks 2 fingers, but takes me to the hospital where I receive 6 stitches. She then tried to press charges against my husband, saying he assaulted her, but the hospital had more than enough proof to put her in jail. I sent her a gift in jail, paternity results showing that her son is the father of my 2 daughters.
Okay, so I'm about to tell you how you can get back at him by basically getting in his head and staying there forever. Because that petty shit, like sending long ass paragraphs and fucking his best friend, that doesn't work. Because he is going to feel like he was right for letting you go, because the person who is meant for him would not be a petty, immature bitch, okay? So what you need to do is basically become the one that got away. You need to become unavailable to him. You need to follow the 90-day rule, all right? You need to glow up. This sounds like some self-love bullshit, but the thing is that a guy's hardest emotions are sadness, guilt, and regret, because they find it very difficult to deal with. And when you're unavailable to him and you're not putting up with his fucking bullshit and you're becoming a better person without him, he's going to be filled with so much regret. It's literally going to consume him. He's going to put you on a pedestal. Every girl that comes after you, he's going to compare them to you. Him feeling like fucking up with you was the worst mistake he could have ever made is the most painful thing you could ever do to him.
Story time about the first time I fainted. So I recently changed my nose ring, and it turns out that the ring wasn't cleaned properly, or it just didn't go well with my nose. So then the part surrounding my nose piercing got infected and blew up. And because I had no other option, I had to take out my nose ring and let it heal. When the area healed, I tried to put a stud back in, and it turns out that the hole closed up. I remember standing there and pushing it in so hard and watching the blood drip out. I was twisting it and I felt it go in a bit, so I kept going, and the blood was just dripping down. And then I felt my head spinning and everything was getting blurrier and I saw like stars. Mom was like, "Are you good?" I was like, "Hold up, I'm fine." Like, what is hitting your head gonna do? I was so dumb. Anyways, then I thought to myself, I think I'm gonna die. Go to part 2 to see what happens next. Part 2 of the first time I've ever fainted. So like I was saying, my head was spinning. I was like tearing up as well. It literally felt like I was gonna die, and one of my biggest fears is dying. So I fainted, and the only thing I heard was my mom yelling for my dad. I remember finding myself on the ground. My parents then picked me up and put me on the bed to lie down, and that's when I regained consciousness. Ever since then, when I see blood, I get anxious and sometimes faint. If anyone wants to know, I did get the stud back in, as you can see. I will be posting these makeup looks and story times on my IG, so make sure to check it out.
She goes, "Hey, Daddy." She goes, "I want to have a lightsaber fight with you too, but I'm Darth Vader." And I said, "All right, a little weird you want to be on the dark side at this age, but choosing evil at 5 is a little concerning to a parent." I was like, "Whatever you want." My little girl is holding this red lightsaber twice the size of her body, and she's psyched. She's doing what her older brother was doing with her dad. And we're just, going back and forth, and she cuts my leg off, and I'm hopping on one leg. Then she cuts my arm off that's holding the lightsaber. I drop the lightsaber. Now she's getting cocky. Then she cuts my other leg off, and I fall back on the couch because I don't have a choice now because I don't have any legs. And I said, "Oh, sweetie, you won. You just beat Daddy." And in the most adorable voice you people could ever imagine, she just goes, "Not yet," and put the shit to my throat.
So one time I decided to get revenge on my boyfriend by hooking up with his brother and glitter bombing his car. So back in March of 2020, I was working at this little travel stop. It's where a lot of the truck drivers would come in, and I ended up meeting this really charming guy. He would stop by there often, and he was really sweet and funny, and we had a really good connection. So we decided to start dating. But immediately after, it got very toxic. While we were clearly in a relationship, he never wanted to put a label on things, and we would get into extremely violent fights where he would threaten to slap me or beat me. I would usually retaliate by calling him out for being a really bad father. And also, when we were doing the nasty, he would say really weird things, like, "I'm going to breed you," or "trap me." I'm thinking, boy. That's a really scary thing to say in bed. Ignoring all these red flags and continuing to date him, I figured out why he didn't want to put a label on things. It was obviously because he was cheating. I was upset and I told his brother about what was going on, and his brother came up with an idea for us to hook up together. And this continued to happen for a while until I felt like it wasn't good enough, and I decided that his car was going to be next. Like for part 2 and follow me on Insta. Part 2 of how I plotted revenge on my boyfriend by hooking up with his brother and glitter bombing his car. So by this time, I'd been hooking up with his brother in our house for a while, but the way that my boyfriend was treating me was just getting worse and worse. We got into a massive blow-up fight, and he told me that I needed a week to get my ish together and get out. But I ended up going out with my friends and drinking for a little bit, so I was kind of in my feels. And I decided to reach out and text him to see if he would want to work things out with me. But instead, he cussed me out, so my friend came over with a bunch of glitter. So we literally poured glitter all over his seats, all over his floors. And I decided to go ahead and smash his taillights and side view mirrors while I was at it. To this day, he still doesn't know that that was me. He also let me know that he was not fond of strippers and that he would never date someone that was a stripper, so after we broke up, I decided to become one. And he would still continue to message me saying that he was going to come see me at the club. So I guess he is down to date strippers, and the revenge was honestly worth it. If you guys have a story that you'd like to share, follow me and DM me on Instagram.